2, 3.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us one more time for our noon service here at New Creation Church. Today we're going to talk about, do you have an ear? Do you have the ability to hear the voice of the Lord? And of course you do. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the beauty of having an ear, and of course the beauty of the Lord speaking to our lives. Thank you for joining us, and we will be with you shortly. God bless you. God, in Jesus' name. Welcome to the house of the Lord. This is kind of the first holiday post-COVID that people really get to, go do things. And I'm glad you decided to be here. As we know, we were glad when they said unto us, let us go into the house of the Lord. How's it go, Marissa? FOMO, fear of missing out. We need to get FOMO here. What I mean is, I don't want you to walk out of fear, but let's be like, we don't want to miss. Because if we miss, you might miss something. Yes, God is good all the time. We're going to read a few scriptures. We're going to start in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. If you don't know this portion of scripture, I suggest that you put this down in your memory bank. Deuteronomy 6, 4 and 5. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might." Very crucial. The book of Revelation, chapter 2, and the 7th verse. Revelation 2 and 7. It says that he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. You may be seated. That last part, we should have that as something we look forward to. I will give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. What a beautiful thing. That tree of life was once in the Garden of Eden, but they were no longer allowed to go to that tree after they eaten of the forbidden fruit or ate of it. But we have the opportunity to get that. In this first verse that we read in Deuteronomy 6:4, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." This is very important to understand because we don't worship other gods. There's not many gods. There's one true God. And there's one God. And that's why he says, "Hear, O Israel." And what happens in this translation is many times we don't see how important this first part is. And it says, "Hear." In Hebrew, you will hear Shema. What that means is hear, listen, obey. So when you just hear someone say the Shema, they mean Deuteronomy 6:4. So it's just shortened Shema. But you can say Shema in the sense of hear, listen, obey. When the Lord spoke and said, "Hear, listen, obey," See, we just hear, like, did you hear that note? No, it's not just the ability to get it to your physical ear. It's the ability to get it through your ear, to your mind, to your heart, and it becomes part of you. And then in the book of Revelation where it says, he that has an ear. Does it mean a physical, literal ear? Because pretty much everyone has an ear. Not everyone can hear literally, but it doesn't even have to be you can be deaf literally, but you can still hear. That might have confused you. You can be deaf, but still hear. We can't discount how well a deaf person can hear. I've learned this from conversating with many people. But if you've ever had a conversation with a blind person, it's way different. It's a way different experience. And one time I was conversating with this gentleman, and we were having a conversation. And I was thinking to myself, as I was conversating with him, I was like, this gentleman conversates like a blind person. And I meant that with inside myself as a compliment. That it was like, this man sees, but he conversates like a blind person. And then later on in the conversation, he asked me about something that obviously I could see and he couldn't see it. Then I realized he was blind. I didn't know he was blind. He didn't have a stick. He didn't have a walking dog. But I had thought to myself, he conversates like if he was blind. And turned out he was blind. But if you've ever had the experience of conversating with a blind person, they just dial in on your words. They dial in on your words. And yes, it's a good thing if we can communicate and we have good abilities or we're gifted to speak. But it doesn't mean much if we can't hear. See, many times we ask the Lord to help us to be good speakers when we should back it up and say, teach me to be a good listener. To be a good listener. People will point this out to me, and I'm aware of it. My delivery when I speak is a slower delivery. And I do this intentionally, and you'll find me pausing. And I do this to allow people to receive what I'm saying. And I've had people where English isn't their first language, and they'll say, you're very easy to understand. And I'll emphasize certain things or certain words or certain areas of a word. But my thinking is, what good is it if I speak really well and fast, but you don't get it? Sometimes now we have all these Facebook, YouTube, all these things, and I'll be watching. And I could tell when somebody's reading. When they're speaking, they're reading something. And the mistake people make when they read monotone, right? It's monotone, and it's fast. And I'm thinking, why are you reading fast? I watch this a lot when, however you want to call, going home services or memorial services, and people go up with their eulogy, right? They read it, and they're busting through it like a speed reader. It's like, slow down, pause, because we don't need to find out if you can read fast. We need to be able to understand what you are saying, not how fast you can read. It's not how fast we can read, it's how fast we can understand it. Because sometimes you could read something, you need to go back and reread it. And the Bible, you will never exhaust reading that. In fact, you could take one chapter and spend a whole year just on one chapter. And then the next year go back to it again. We could spend years on just Genesis 1. You just can. So it's not how fast you can read it. It's what you can read and understand. So it's not how fast I can speak. It's what I'm saying, can you hear it? Can you comprehend it? As Minister J. Mack says, I'll say, can you see this? Can you see it? What I mean is, are you hearing this? Are you hearing it? Because we can hear something and not really hear it. Because I imagine you've had this happen where you told someone something and they'll say, I don't remember you saying this. Right? They'll say, and they were looking at you, but there might have been a chance they weren't listening. That's where texts come on. And how does it go? Receipts. Right? Show me receipts. Screenshot, I text you. Which is different because we can argue about, did we say something or not say something? So if we have this experience with each other, do you think we may not always hear God? That He may be speaking to you, but you can't hear Him? Or He may be speaking to me, but I can't hear Him? Do you think God may be speaking to this world and they can't hear Him? I know I shared this before. I'll share it again. But I'll watch these documentaries or about plane crashes. They just interest me. And then they'll break down what happened to the airplane, what happened on the crash. And most airplane crashes are human error. Most are human error. I don't know the exact statistics, but it's probably like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. It's a human error, and usually it's the pilot. Sometimes it's the mechanics, but sometimes it's the pilot, or most of the time it's the pilot. And you know what happens? They get distracted. They're knowledgeable, they're talented, they're capable, but they get distracted. And that distraction could cause an accident because they're distracted. Happens many times. Distraction happens. People get distracted. So it happens in communication. We get distracted. Somebody says something. I've been guilty of this, where someone sends me a text and I didn't catch it. I didn't catch the text. And you know the little green dot, on my phone I have a green dot that there's a text. And I'll go through sometimes because it's like, did I miss something? And it can happen. And I'm not excusing anything, but it can happen. Same thing with an email. Someone might text me and say, did you get my email? I'm like, well, I got to go back. Because I just get, especially on Monday, I don't know about with Monday. I should put a do not disturb my email box on Monday. But I just get flooded on Mondays. Tomorrow I probably won't. But usually on Mondays, I just rows of emails, pages of them. And some of them I would say majority, I don't even open them. I just trash them. But I got to be careful because someone might send me something important. I just don't recognize the name that comes across. So if it goes to my junk mail, because it'll look at it as, well, you haven't communicated with this person, so it doesn't put them on this other list. So I got to be careful. If I trash it from the other list, it goes to another place I can find it. But if I trash it from junk, there's nowhere to find it. But I can become distracted. and miss something. This is life. And this will happen where something will happen tomorrow, and I'll say, I just covered that yesterday. I think I just went over it, but it got distracted. It didn't go from here to there, and or maybe it did, but it was discounted. I was like, nah, I'm gonna do it a different way. But we can find ourselves missing a message, missing the message. And I say it this way: God's not gonna wait for us in the sense that he's going to be last in line with us. And I know some people would probably disagree with me. God is patient, he'll wait. Yes, he's patient. But putting him on hold, we may miss the timing of it. And how can God communicate with us when we're distracted? We have so much coming at us from all kinds of places, and he's going to yell over all of our distractions. No, he's not. See, we have to pause. We have to give him his time. We have to give him his time. We have to block things out. You start your day just blasting music, just going, talking on the phone, sending texts, sending emails. Well, God didn't speak to me. Did we even allow him to? Did we even give him a chance to? That's why so many times the Lord will speak to us in our sleep. Because sometimes that's the only place he can get us. Because the rest of the day, we don't take the time to pause. And I'm different in this aspect. Some people will teach us that only the man of God can hear from the Lord. Only they can hear from the Lord. I don't believe that. I believe that God can speak to anybody. It's just, can anybody hear him? It's not, can God speak to you? That's not the question. Because he can, and he will, and he probably does. The question is, can you hear him? Nobody ever taught me how to hear God. Nobody ever taught me that. I've never heard instructions on hearing God. I've never been to a conference about hearing God. Never have. But through life, through experience, through trials, through hard times, I'm learning how to hear God. But I can look back and see where he did speak to me. And I've heard it said that God wouldn't speak so much. I don't know where people come up with that. God will only say small things here and there on special occasions. So we limit that God will speak to us on a consistent basis. Isn't it strange, though, that nobody says that about the devil? That the devil only speaks a few times a year and he doesn't say much. Nobody would ever say that. And the strange thing is the devil can't be in all places at all times, but God can. So the ability for God to speak to us all the time is way greater than the devil. But if you ever told somebody that the devil said something or the devil spoke, almost everybody would say, oh, okay. And some people would even say, tell me what he said. But you won't hear someone say the devil doesn't speak. You won't hear that. But people will say that God doesn't speak. And when I say God, I'm talking the living God. I'm talking about God Almighty. I'm saying this to you because I want you to see that if anyone can speak to you, if anybody can speak to you, it's God. You remember Elijah? Maybe when they're calling on their gods, he's like, maybe your gods are deaf. Maybe they can't speak. He was like mocking them, but he was talking about his God can hear. His God can see. And his God can speak. See, and I don't know about all this communicating with other things or angels or whatever. If an angel shows up and entertains me, I'm good with that, okay? I'm good with it. But I'm not looking and talking to angels in the sense that angels, can we have a conversation? You know why? Because I'm going directly to the source. I'm going directly to the source. To him. And I've done this. For me, going through some situations in my life that are challenging, I've brought them to the Lord, and at the same time, I'll be like, Lord, I know that this is minimal in the big picture. It's minimal in the big picture, but it's big in my picture. It's big in my picture. And I know that sometimes he probably would text me SMH, shaking my head, because you're making a big deal out of something that's not that big of a deal. And I'm talking about me and my relationship with him. I know all of you levitate at night and he wouldn't shake his head at you. But at me, I think sometimes he shakes his head at me. Don't worry. I'm going to take care of it. Or I've already taken care of it. Sometimes I don't know how the story ends. I know how the big story ends. We just read it. The tree of life in the midst of the paradise of God. That one I'm not stressed. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I know that we'll end up on streets of gold. So how do you know? Because he is good and his mercy endureth forever and his blood is powerful. That's how I know. But in life there's challenges. In life there are obstacles. And I'll have to go to him and say, Father God, show me, teach me, guide me. Don't let me make a bad situation, and I'm not a big fan of that word, but it just works here, a bad situation worse. Don't let me go from the frying pan into the fire. Because sometimes a situation is difficult and we make it more difficult. Sometimes we put our hands on something that we need to let off of or not put our hands on. Sometimes you might want to know something or you might want to know some answers, but you have to watch out what can you might open when you do that. Sometimes you just have to let it unfold. And I say it this way. I don't want my name on it. I don't want my name on it. And sometimes my name gets put on something and it wasn't even there. And I'll say, that's why I said what I said, because I didn't want my name on it. And I won't engage. I won't get into certain things because it's like people will put words in your mouth. I could counsel someone and say, give them affirmative counsel.
And then when it doesn't work, they'll say I said something in reverse. I'm like, that's not what I said. I said this, this, and that. And I said it intentionally so my name wouldn't be put on this. Example, a couple disagreeing, not seeing things the same, and then asking me to take sides. That may happen. And I say this, watch re-preaching my messages. Do you know what I mean by that? You're here, they're not here. Well, pastor said this, and pastor said that. Or you did. And then it's like, well, they're not getting the context. They're not getting the presence. They're not getting the whole message. And it's when you transfer something, it doesn't always, the game that as kids and you say something to them and they say it and it goes, by the time it gets to the end, it's nothing about what it started with. Right? And sometimes you hear something and it's way over exaggerated. So the same thing can happen in preachings. Well, now we have receipts. Here I am with receipts, right? Don't we have receipts? All you married women, all you got to do is go to YouTube, tell them. They're probably not going to do it, but you can maybe pull it up and copy and paste. But it's a lot different than it used to be. I'll just say this. Watch what you text. Am I on? Watch what you text. Because it becomes a receipt. Thank you. Because people can screenshot it. And when you communicate, I'm giving you some counsel here. Sometimes you have to just say one. And it's different than Deuteronomy 6:4:1. That's a big O one. A small O. One should view this, or one should act like this. Does that make sense? One. As compared to Brother Danny, he shouldn't have done this. Me and him have this thing going on. So, do you get it? Now someone screenshot, boom, send it to, see this? You don't think that happens? But if you say one, I could be talking about myself. And that doesn't, when I say one should, does that not include me? Is that different than me saying Brother Danny should? Do you see the difference in it? This shouldn't be confusing. Because what this avoids is us putting ourselves in a position where we make a situation worse or we ignite a situation. So I'm saying, use wisdom. Use wisdom. But something could be communicated like I just communicated. Right? And somebody will not listen to it. And then somebody's name gets put on something and there's receipts. I'm pausing because I'm helping you. Because it's still, even though we have all these new forms of communication, you can't unring the bell. And you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And sometimes you might say something or text something, and it's like, oh no, can I get those back and bring them back? That's why we should think twice and speak once. Let me think about what I'm saying. Let me think about it. And I'm talking about us having the ability to hear, our ability to listen, our ability to obey, or the ability to shema. Because the most important voice you will ever hear is the voice of God. The most important voice. Now, God will speak to you through people. He will. Don't let anyone tell you he won't, because he will. And when that happens, you hear it right here. It doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it'll come to your ears. Audible. You'll hear it. So it goes from there to there to there. Did you catch that? You'll hear it audible, here to here to here. And if you've watched me or listened to me preach enough times, I do this intentionally. I leave spaces so that God can speak through me to somebody. And that somebody may be you. And sometimes I'll be like, I'll say this so that people may get clarity. I wasn't planning on saying this. It wasn't premeditated. And many times I'll say something and I'll be like, I didn't even know that. I've never had the thought. I've never read this, but it'll come through. And for me, that's a beautiful thing. But it's more beautiful to add to it if you can receive it. But that's the audible. The other thing is, he will speak to you in his word. He will speak to you in his word. But he can't speak to you in his word if you don't read his word. But you read his word, or you can listen to his word also. I'm not opposed to that. You can go again to YouTube and find readings of scriptures. Someone does the homework for you. I used to use the cassettes. Some of you probably don't even know what a cassette is, but a cassette of the Bible. I have the whole thing, and I would stick a cassette in and let it play. Later on, it went to CDs, and it became easier. But now, you could just go there. There's apps, yes. You could just go to apps. James Earl Jones or something, right? You go find something out there that's reading you the word, and he will speak to you. He will speak to you. But when I talk about the audible from here to here to here, I think that's the way we would want it. That's the way we probably like it. But most of the time, that's not the way it happens. More times, he speaks here. He speaks here. Then it gets to here. Instead of here, 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 it goes here to here. But you can't go from here to here if you don't have an ear. You have to have an ear to hear here. And I'm going to explain to you how you have an ear here. It goes back to the same instructions that we can't forfeit. It's the same instructions. I set before you a blessing and a curse. A blessing if you will obey my instructions. See, a blessing if you obey, what it does is it gives your heart an ear. When we disobey, when we do things the way we want, or the wrong way, I should say, we dull our hearing. We dull the ability to hear God. Sometimes you could talk to somebody and you look in their eyes and you could tell they can't hear you. They can't hear you. You're talking Charlie Brown, womp, 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 womp. I'm dating myself. I mean, it's a cartoon. And the teacher is womp, womp. That's how the teacher sounds. The teacher doesn't, that they just put that in. It was organically, they got that in there and it became the way it is. But that's how it is sometimes when you speak to people. They can't hear you. But we do the same thing to God. With our we callous our hearts and we block the ability for him to communicate with us here. And the ability to have that is to keep this free, unobstructed, and keep this unobstructed. I'm going to go back to the part when something gets miscommunicated but when an issue blows up in somebody's life, you see that? When an issue blows up in one's life, a situation ignites. What happens to us when that happens? When a situation blows up, when a situation ignites, I'm going to tell you what happens. It preoccupies our thoughts. It becomes part of our day. It becomes part of our night. And sometimes we could go to sleep and it becomes part of our next day. All because one said tomato and the other said tomato. Right? I used this one this morning to those of you that viewed Pastor's Corner. Right? You think I'm going to get in on that debate? And some people will misunderstand that I'm lightening things or making light of something. No. People that passed away, God have mercy on them. Let them rest in peace. But I'm not arguing with anyone pro-mass or con-mass. I'm not doing it. And I said this. And people get mad, but it's the truth. Some people will wear masks the rest of their life. Does that hurt your feelings? Because if it does, I'll say it this way. I know I hurt men's feelings. You have to get over it. I read this and people get angry. The airlines are talking about making masks mandatory forever. So if you want to get on a plane, and you'll read stories where people get thrown off a plane because they refuse to wear a mask. Right? Is that where you want to put your energy? See, I'm saying this to say, no, we don't. So watch what things you get into, because then it becomes part of what preoccupies you. I've watched this one. Someone says something about somebody and another person will be like, don't worry about it. Let it go. It's no big deal. Well, they said it about you. What? No, 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 that's it. That's it. Where's my phone? They call the army, they call the troops, right? Start blasting, and then all of a sudden they start throwing messages up on Facebook, subliminal messages, and all kinds of stuff. I thought, what happened to it's no big deal. I thought, what happened to let it go? So it's different when it comes home. You see this? We get ourselves caught up in these things. We're distracted. We can't hear God. And I see it this way. The Lord, He's there. He's ready. But He's got to just wait. You done? You through with that? Oh, you're going back for more, huh? You're going to poke the bear. You're going to poke the bear. Another line I'll use. You know that I'll say, don't poke the bear. Or don't push the buttons. Or don't yank the chain. We just have to poke the bear. Right? Yeah, it's like it's quiet. Let's see that. Let's see if that bear comes out. Your peace is more important. Your peace is more important. And let go of needing or having to be right. And what I mean, Brother Danny said, say it again. What I mean by being right to win an argument. But I'm all for being right this way and this way. I'm all for being right this way and this way. But I'm okay losing an argument. Let me lose an argument. Let me lose every argument. But let me keep this right and this right. Medea, your dad couldn't have been a good lawyer. Because when I went to court, I might just say, okay, you win. And I'd get fired. Because you'd have to like to argue to go to court and argue. I have a hard time sometimes just watching it. Again, me and my YouTube. And they'll throw these so-and-so getting sentenced for this, and it comes across my thing for some reason. And it's like a car crash. I'll hit it. Someone's getting sentenced, and it's just, oh my gosh, this is awkward. And I don't even know the people. Much less if I was sometimes the attorney's with them and the person's just losing it. Yelling at the judge and cussing them out, and then people out in the, what's that called again? The people, the public people, whatever, out, they start yelling, and of course, you know how it works. And I'm just like, if I was that attorney, wow, that's why I couldn't do it. Not my thing. But the needing to be right in an argument, is it worth it? Is it worth it? That's where you have to say, okay. Not to people all the time, okay. To yourself. I'm going to ride up to the high road. So that at the end, I keep my peace. I keep my peace. Because if I'm so fired up about what you did or you said, you think I'm going to hear God? I'm not going to hear God, because what I'm thinking is, what can I say to you? How can I get you? How can I jab you? How can I one-line you? Right? Do you think I could argue? Do you think I have any ammunition in my guns? Nobody? Sergio goes, he kind of made like, I have ammunition. I could put up arguments. I choose not to. I choose not to. Why? For what purpose? So I could win an argument and lose my peace? Lose my peace? And more importantly, I lose my peace. I lose my ear. I lose my ear. I'm going to drill a little bit deeper and start wrapping this up. I live my life looking and to the best of my ability of keeping the conduits free and unobstructed. So you have to think about this. Speaking 7 times a week. Speaking 7 times a week. And having fresh word coming. Not reading it from a book. Not having somebody do research and hand me some papers. But camera goes. And I'm going. Monday morning. Marvelous Monday. Joy. Weeping may endureth for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Good morning. What do we say, Jay? Some of you that watch, right? Good morning. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I have to bring a nugget. I have to bring a thought. I have to bring inspiration. I can't get psyched out. You got this. You got this. Come on. You can do this. Then I got my corner people, and they got to say, you can do it. You can do it. Come on. Come on. Jay, get in there. Come on, help them out. Is that what it looks like? Go. 1, 2, 3, boom. 7 times a week. Now, if I'm busy finding a jab line for Brother Danny, do you think I can do that? If I'm going at it with everybody and I'm fighting over all these things and arguing about all these different points of view, do you think I could look at this camera? 1, 2, 3, go. My mind's going to be scattered. My mind's going to be blocked. I'm going to be just thinking about how am I going to win this argument? That at the end I could say, I beat him. I beat him. And what does that give me? Do I get a trophy? Do they give trophies out? Don't you give trophies to everyone now? Do they put a medal on me? I won. I beat Brother Danny. Do you see how that looks? So I have to, and I'm not saying this, that it's not like writing an essay where I'm stressed and I'm worried. And anyone that's close to me, my concern is this. This is my concern. Did I go too deep? That's my only concern at the end. Did I go too deep? What do I mean by that? Did I go beyond what people could understand? Because I can keep drilling. And I've learned this. I can't speak like a glass and just pour it out. I have to have a river flowing through me. And I need to speak a small percentage of what I know. Whatever your job is, you will speak to somebody a small portion. I'm going to use you, Minister J. Mac. Music theory, notes, all the build-up, that you have, that you know, that you can play this keyboard. You could play those drums. You could play the guitar. You can hear a note and say it's this key and this note. When you're telling somebody you need to go into this note or this key, you're not going to tell them all that you know. Brother Danny, you communicating to Brother Sergio and you're going over something. How many hours have you touched a string on a guitar? Thousands? Thousands of hours that you have touched a string on a guitar. But you can show him something, but you can't show him your thousands of hours. But your information, now you're in the place of your cousins, right? Your cousins, you could teach them. Your information, because you have more experience, is deeper. I have to be filled with information and knowledge and share a small bit of it. And my only concern is, did I go too deep? Can you keep up with it? Can you hear it? But in order for me to step up 7 times a week, this has to stay unobstructed. And this has to, there's no way I can go from an argument and then, hi, good morning. Me and Jay and our smiles. Well, I don't smile much, but I smile with my heart. But do you see this? Because I have to hear. I have to hear. And the way I explain the conduit, this is so important that I will always promote that. Missing the mark, that we don't miss the mark. That we don't break the flow of what's coming from above to us. But in order to do that, we have to stay out of the weeds. We have to stay out of the junk. We have to stay in our lane. Stay in our lane. Stay in your lane. I stay in my lane. It bothers me, those double turn lanes. You know how they turn 2 cars? And one of the cars uses both lanes. I'm like, you got to stay in your lane. We witnessed it. We're sitting at the light. There's a car on the inside, a car on the outside. Got the car on the outside, and it's free on the inside. A car comes on the inside, and the car on the outside turned and took both lanes and crunch. He assumed the inside lane was free. He assumed it. It wasn't. It's just the car was further back. So the guy had a running start in that inside lane because he was coming from behind. And the other guy was at a standstill. But when he hit the gas, he just figured there's no one next to me. He went like that. Crunch. That's why it's so important in life for you, for me, for one, to stay in their lane. Because if I get out of my lane, I won't be able to step up and be a vessel, a conduit, that it could flow. So the steady eddy, I tell people this, I'm the tortoise. You know the tortoise? The turtle? I'm slow and steady. I move fast, but inside I'm, you know the line, get rich quick? I say it this way. You want to get rich? Get rich slow. Get rich slow. Be like the turtle. Be like the tortoise. Steady. Steady. You stay in your lane. Don't find yourself in areas that are going to distract you and obstruct you, and you'll hear. You'll hear. I'm giving you a lot of information here. Because if you can silence all the other stuff, God will speak to you. He will speak to you. And we went deep on Memorial Weekend. But it's important. I'm glad you're here, those of you that are online. Thank you for being with us. And I hope, because here's how I view it. The more people that can hear God, the better we're going to be off. I'm not looking to corner the market. I'm not looking to say, I know something nobody else knows. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to hear God, but I'm also looking for you to hear God. I'm looking for more people to hear God. Because who else would we want to hear from anyways? Who would you rather hear from? But from the Lord.